did you feel the earth move?
Yes,
My partner felt
awake.
the earth move just after 2:30, but I didn't.
I was awake. Iman, at some point, I was even joking, saying, it feels like my house is being ripped from one point to the next. It was intense. It was intense.
Where were you situated? Closer to Boksburg?
No, I'm in Centuria.
All right, but still, as we heard, the effects have felt far away. I was in the bush and, I don't know, I slept right through
You
the
were
whole
living
thing.
the bush life. Huh? You were living the bush life. While
Hence I
some
say-
of us were wondering if the earth is going to get swallowed in a second.
It was totally wasted on me. We're going to talk more about the impacts of, on logistics. We were talking about about load shedding a little bit earlier and pick up the subject in terms of its impact on logistics in a moment.
And of course, Iman is about to have this conversation as experts are concerned that the logistics crisis has seen worsening rail performance. Iman?
Yeah, Bongiwe, it's hamstringing export sales and foreign exchange earnings. And experts are cautioning that unlike the electricity supply crisis, the logistics dilemma is not felt directly or immediately by the average citizen, but it does not mean that its progression isn't swift and devastating. So we're going to talk to Jan Havenga, a professor in logistics management at Stellenbosch University. This logistics calamity is thought to have sliced off as much as 6.68, almost 7% of GDP in 2022. And the bulk of that is attributable to the rail challenges, and a smaller portion relates to ports. So Professor Havenga joins us now to talk about how deep this goes. Professor, welcome to you. Good evening. Load shedding, as we've been talking about all night, described as the single biggest threat to our economy. We know it, we measure it, we talk about it every day. This logistics reality may have had a greater negative impact on our economic growth. How so?
You're 100% right. I mean, in terms of electricity, which we all need and we all feel and which industry feels, but if you throw the light switch, the lights are not there. So we feel it every day. In terms of logistics crisis, it is in certain sense much worse because we'll see it down the line with hundreds of thousands of jobs that's being lost. If you take last year alone and you think about what the miners lost, you think about 30 million tons of coal that we didn't export at 5,000 Rand a ton. It's more than 100 billion Rand that's missing out of the economy. It's money that's missing out of taxes that could have been paid. Tens of billions or maybe 50 billion Rands of tax that's missing. It is people that's going to lose their jobs, as I say. It's people trying to get the coal to the sea with trucks, destroying our roads, causing accidents. It's a huge problem. It is just not as visible immediately to everybody. And the figure you give is the figure that we've calculated. Yeah, 6.6% of GDP. It's a lot.
Wow, that is a lot. You talked there, you gave a hint. I wish we had more time in this interview to talk about the multiplier effect of something like this. But, the stuff can't get to market, you're saying. We lose at least 20 million tons, or the impact of 20 million tons of coal. But, to put it again in real terms, we're losing at least 1 billion Rand a day?
That is right. Last year, it was about 1 billion Rand a day that we've lost. Exactly right. So every time we have a crisis meeting about this, and at the end of the meeting, I often say to people, okay, that's another 1 billion Rand down the drain as we try to fix these things.
So describe the rail lines, like, dedicated lines like the iron ore line and what's happening with those, being able to function, particularly what we're seeing, these rising events and criminal events of cable theft.
It's a combination of problems. One of the biggest problems is the fact that maintenance has gone awry. The lines are not maintained as much as they should and as good as they should because of state capture, because of missing funds, because of not enough money to do maintenance. That's what started the whole problem. But then, yes, that was exacerbated by things like vandalism and theft and sabotage, etc., etc.
Yeah.
A huge amount of problems that all came together to form this perfect storm of problems that we've got at the moment.
Professor Havenga, what a privilege to talk to you, because you speak in such succinct and simple terms. Some of your colleagues, I think, love to give us all of the sampling and the detail, but you've made it really simple for us to understand. So take this further. Speak to us in loaves of bread. What's the impact?
The impacts in terms of loaves of bread, as I said, it's hundreds of thousands of jobs that's being lost. It's money that's being lost. I would just add to that, I also see a solution. One important point here, electricity solution is very expensive and difficult to solve. The logistics one, not so much. It's going to cost us maybe 60 to 100 billion Rand to rehabilitate the network. We have the president that promised us a roadmap in SONA. He has called Transnet to book. He has promised industry and logistics crisis committee. That committee sat for the first time last week. He's promised, he's got all of the CEOs in South Africa that's going to work with him, and they're going to solve this problem. I see hope here. I see hope that we're going to be able to solve this in the next few months, start the process of fixing our network, getting our trains going again, and getting private sector operators involved. The president promised us that. In the last 3 months, what I've seen is that they're actually keeping to those promises of getting to that point. So I also want to say I'm beginning to get positive about this.
And that's wonderful to hear, because we can be so wrapped up in the negativity, and yet there are opportunities for us to fix. And just to go back to that loaf of bread example, when you think about the transport of the wheat, from the farm, from the silo, then it gets from the silo to the mill and on and on. And we've seen this, the exponential multiplier effects, as you term them, of not having things work as they should. And compounded by load shedding, but then again made so much worse in terms of its impact on our logistics network. We really appreciate your time tonight, and thank you for coming through. Hopefully we're able to have a longer conversation next time. Professor Havenga joining us there. He's from Stellenbosch University. We're going to toss it over to Xoli and sport.